The wind dragged sand across the hardpan, whispering low, like a warning. A woman stumbled into that dying light, her dress torn near to rags, her skin streaked with blood and dirt. Rope it into her wrists, her hands bound behind her back. Each step left her swaying, her knees ready to fold. She stopped when she saw him. A man stood by a horse beneath a Joshua tree, the horizon burning gold behind him. Hat pulled low, face shadowed, his stance was still as stone. In his hand glinted steel, a long hunting knife that caught the last flame of the sun. The woman's breath rattled in her chest. "Just kill me," she whispered, the words breaking as they left her lips. She swayed, then spoke again, louder, hoarse and jagged. "Just kill me and be done with it." The horse shifted, stamping once, snorting into the dry wind. The man didn't move. His eyes followed her, slow, measuring, as though weighing something unseen. The knife lowered slightly, but never left his hand. Her voice cracked. "You think I fear death? I begged for it already. You hear me?" She tugged against the rope at her wrists, the fibers tearing deeper into raw skin. "I begged." The rancher's shadow stretched long across the dust between them. He took a step forward. The leather of his boots creaked in the silence. Her knees gave, and she dropped into the dirt. The rope cut harder against her arms as she twisted, half trying to crawl, half ready to collapse. The man stopped over her, the brim of his hat hiding his eyes. The knife hovered. The desert held its breath. She looked up, lips trembling, face streaked with dust and sweat. "Do it," she hissed. "You don't know what they've done to me." "You don't know?" Her words broke in a sob, her head falling forward, strands of hair clinging to her cheek. The only sound was the creak of the horse's saddle as it shifted behind him, waiting, restless. The rancher crouched, the knife point catching a sliver of fire from the sinking sun. For an instant, it looked as though he meant to strike. The woman stiffened, her breath held sharp and ragged. Then, without a word, he cut the rope from her wrists. The strands fell loose into the dust. She gasped, blinking through tears, her raw hands free but trembling. Slowly, painfully, she raised her head. The rancher said nothing. His face was carved in silence, eyes set deep in shadow. He turned, motioning once toward the dark outline of a homestead beyond the tree line. Then he walked ahead, boots crunching through dry earth, as though he hadn't heard her plea, as though her cry for death weighed nothing at all. The woman stayed there a moment longer, dust and blood on her torn dress, the rope fallen at her side. She stared at his back, fear and confusion twisting in her chest, before forcing her legs to carry her after him into the waiting dark. The lantern hissed as the flame fought against the draft. Its glow bled across warped floorboards, throwing long, restless shadows against the cabin walls. The woman sat hunched near the table, her raw wrists wrapped in strips of cloth, her eyes fixed on the man who sat opposite her in silence. "You don't understand," she rasped, voice sharp with the edge of memory. Her fingers trembled as they clutched the tin cup he had set before her. Water sloshed, spilling down her torn dress. "They dragged me from the wagon. Blackthorn Riders. You know the name." The rancher didn't answer. His face stayed buried beneath the brim of his hat, his jaw carved from stone. Only the twitch of his fingers near the knife on his belt betrayed that he heard her. "They laughed," she continued, the words spilling out faster, harder, like coyotes in the dark. "They cut my brother down where he stood, left me for dead in the dust." Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. "And they'll keep riding, keep burning. That's what they do." The wind pressed against the cabin walls, wood groaning. Outside, coyotes yipped a thin, mocking chorus across the desert floor. Her gaze drifted past him to the mantel above the cold hearth. There, against the cracked plaster, hung two revolvers. Long barrels, nickel-plated, grips worn smooth by years of use. Dust lay thick across the wood beam, except where hands had disturbed it, recent and careful. She stared. "Those guns, they're not for show." The rancher's eyes flicked to her at last, steel gray, hard enough to cut. The air in the cabin seemed to shrink beneath the weight of that look. "You've used them," she pressed, her words a whisper now. More than once. Silence stretched. The lantern flame shivered. The horse outside stamped and tugged its reins, as if sensing something coiled and waiting within. The woman leaned forward, her breath shaking. "Who are you?" The rancher's hand lifted slow, deliberate, setting the knife down on the table. The steel rang faint against the wood. His voice came low, gravel-worn, like thunder buried deep in canyon stone. "I buried that man long ago." The words struck colder than steel. The woman recoiled, heart hammering, though she couldn't look away. His eyes hadn't moved from the flame, but the weight of them pressed her to the chair as if he saw every corner of her fear, every wound she carried. Outside, the wind rose, howling through the chinks in the wood. The lantern flickered, shadows stretching taller against the walls, and in that unsteady light she realized the truth. This was no simple rancher. This was a man who had lived by fire and steel and chosen silence as his grave. And now, by her words, she had dug him up. Gunfire cracked in the distance, echoing off the canyon walls like thunder without rain. The woman jolted upright, her breath catching. From the ridge above, smoke curled skyward, thick, black, rising from the town. The rancher already stood at the doorway, hat low, coat drawn. His hand moved with quiet purpose, sliding cartridges into a revolver with the same calm a man might use to mend a fence. Each click of metal against chamber rang sharp in the cabin silence. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling against the hiss of the lantern. "Blackthorn Riders. They'll kill you. Leave it, please." The rancher holstered the revolver, his movements unhurried. He strapped a rifle across his back, the leather creaking with age. He never looked at her, never spoke. She stepped forward, desperate. "You can't fight them. Not now, not alone." Her hand touched his arm. His muscles were taut beneath the worn cloth, hard as seasoned oak. He pulled away, reached for the saddle outside. The horse stamped and tossed its head, sensing the storm in its rider's silence. Spurs clinked as the rancher mounted, the sound cutting through the restless wind. The woman's voice broke against the canyon air. "If you go to them, you won't come back." He turned his head, just enough that the lantern's glow caught his eyes. They burned cold, steady, carrying the weight of a man who had already buried his life once. His words rolled like low thunder. "I was justice once. Tonight, I'll be justice again." Then he kicked the horse forward, and the canyon swallowed him. The woman stumbled after him, reaching the doorway as dust rose in his wake. Beyond, the desert stretched wide, bathed in moonlight, the canyon ridges cutting the horizon like jagged teeth. Firelight flared in the distance, painting the rocks red. The sound grew, shouts, cruel laughter carried on the wind. The riders' voices tore through the night, echoing like the howls of wolves. She clutched the doorway, heart hammering, watching the figure of the rancher vanish deeper into shadow. His outline against the canyon rim shrank with every stride, until only the glint of steel caught the moon. The desert seemed to hold its breath. Down in the canyon, the riders roared louder, their horses restless, their guns raised high. Sparks from their campfires leapt into the night sky, tiny stars against the black. The woman sank to her knees, the earth cold beneath her. She pressed her palms to the dirt, praying for silence, praying he would return. But the only answer came from the canyon, the steady, distant drum of a horse's hooves carrying a man into fire. The first shot split the night, echoing through the canyon like lightning tearing stone. Horses shrieked, men cursed, firelight snapped and burned higher as the Blackthorn Riders scrambled for their guns. The rancher stepped from shadow, revolver drawn. His coat swayed with the desert wind, his eyes steady as iron. A rider swung his rifle up, too slow. The crack of the rancher's gun dropped him before the trigger was pulled. Dust rose thick, curling through torchlight, cloaking the canyon floor. Bullets cut the dark, whining off rock, sparking fire from stone. The rancher moved with the patience of a hunter, each step measured, each shot precise. One rider pitched backward into the flames. Another fell to his knees, choking on blood. The woman's breath hitched where she stood at the ridge, watching. Her nails dug into the earth, eyes wide as the quiet man she had followed from the desert became something else, something the land itself seemed to fear. The riders screamed his name then, names half remembered in their drunken boasts, names whispered in saloons as curses. He answered with steel. The leader emerged at last, tall, broad-shouldered, his face lit by the glow of fire. A cruel grin cut across his jaw as he raised his pistol. "I thought you were dead." The rancher's revolver hung low at his side, his fingers brushing the worn grip. His voice carried through the smoke, steady as the desert wind. "You should have left her where she fell." Silence held, heavy, stretched thin as wire. Then both men drew. The shots cracked together, thunder rolling against the canyon walls. Sparks lit the dust between them. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then the rider staggered, blood dark against his shirt, and fell hard into the dirt. The rancher stood alone in the settling smoke. His chest rose slow, his breath heavy, but his hand never trembled. Around him lay the silence of the dead. The woman's legs shook as she stumbled down the slope, dust clinging to her dress. She stopped short of him, her eyes caught between fear and awe. "Why?" Her voice was raw, broken. "Why risk yourself for me?" The rancher holstered his revolver, his shadow long against the canyon floor. He turned just enough that the firelight caught the scars across his face. His words came low, worn with sorrow. "Because you asked me to kill you. But I'd rather you lived. The frontier has buried enough souls." The woman wept, silent tears tracing through the dust on her cheeks. When she looked up again, the rancher was gone, his figure swallowed by the canyon's mouth, footsteps fading into the desert night. And the storyteller's voice carried on the wind. Some say he died there. Others swear he rides still, a shadow cut from stone and dust. But all agree. The night the lonely rancher rose again, death itself stepped aside.